Hello, hello, hello. Crafty Chris here again with another quick video. I'm going to show you how I go about sampling and storing my samples for the new release, the second release of the new Oxides from Ranger, the Tim Holt Oxides. Basically, I'm pulling these all apart and we are going to do some sampling, and I'll talk about how I've gone about figuring out how to do that with the least amount of stress. I have opened up all of my packaging and now I'm ready to get these guys sampled. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go by collection and I'm going to keep track of what I'm working with. I used repositionable tape on the back of these so that when I put them down and spread them apart, you can see I use scrap paper for all this stuff. Maybe I'll move that row up to the top so that you can see it better. And what I do is I just simply cut whatever paper I have available into just slightly under 2 by 2 squares, and I'll show you why in a moment. So these guys are not moving. That one is. That one is. So I push it down nice and tight so that they don't shift. And we're going to start with this group. And basically all I'm doing is I'm opening up. This is ground espresso. Doesn't matter what order I do them in. Now you have to be careful because of the nature of the ink. These containers are tighter than the original inks are. So the oxides are tighter. And I'm just going to go in and I'm going to swipe, leaving about 1/4 of an inch. Whoops, this is shifty. And just covering up the space, trying not to get too much on my mat. So that's ground espresso. Then I'm going to do, again, you have to be careful with these, opening these. You don't want to ruin them, but you also don't want to have it too loose because you don't want it drying out. There we go. You can already see this one oxidizing. That was fast. And frayed. That one came apart very easy. There we go. Maybe a little more. Make sure it covers. And then we're going to do hickory smoke. Okay. And so I have just a tiny little bit of mess on my glass mat. And if you saw my last video, you know that glass mats, and I love glass mats because they clean up very easily. So now the next round of colors, I'm just going to grab one. Doesn't matter what order I put them in. I'm going to go in and do the same thing. Just get it covered as much as possible without making too much of a mess. Just stick that right there. And I am holding it down, but the sticky is making it much easier for me to keep it in one spot. Now, some people keep them in the colorways that come in the sets. I don't do that. I keep them in a logical colorway that works for me. So I've done all the minis in the regular line, and that's the way it worked for me. So I'm just going to keep that process because that is what worked for me. So you'll organize them in your storage however works for you. I'm just going to move these guys up there out of the way. All right, I did not purchase the regular size of these because I am a small cube user and it didn't make sense to me to have big cubes. They take up too much space. So I did not get any oxides, for the past however long they've been available for that reason. And so I am absolutely thrilled that they have figured out the chemistry for the oxides. So that makes me very happy. Okay, so I have this piece of plastic, and I want to get the splatter effect on here. So I am just going to physically spray and block. so that you can see what happens when water gets added. Oh, that's a problem. Oh well. Let's see. Try and do it a little more carefully. And then I'll get that paper towel that I had and I'll just wipe off my little plastic thing. So it looks to me like I need to put them further apart, but that's awesome. This is the first time I'm using this new technique, and I think I will be happy with it anyway. So now I'm just going to dry this down, and I'm going to take my inks out of the way because I don't want them in the drying process. Should have maybe done that before I put the water in here, but that's all right. You're seeing it from the beginning idea. All right, so this is the order in which they are on my mat. I'm just going to go in, and the nice thing about a glass mat is it conducts heat, so this should not take too long to dry. And when they're mostly dry, then ones that are slightly damp, I'll dry them a little bit more till they are dry. So that one's good to go. This one needs a little bit more. I'm basically just trying to get them as dry as possible so they don't transfer ink. That's all I'm worried about, is the transferring of ink. I'm going to keep them in the same order. Let's just pile those guys on top of each other. And be careful not to push them down because they do have the sticky on the back, and you don't want that to be stuck to your surface. Now, the question is, the stuff on the back, am I going to be able to get that off? Well, sometimes adding heat makes impermanent things permanent, so we will find out whether that will work or not. Okay, so I have my piles. I just want to clean up this area. I'm going to use a paper towel because I love to use the paper towels in my crafting. So I am just going to go in very quickly. I have a damp paper towel, so I don't think I need much more dampness. I can get the majority of this off using the damp towel I have. We have a nice clean surface to work with for our next sets. There are 6 sets, so it just made sense to do 3 rows. Here is our finished pieces. Now let's see if we can get the sticky off the backs. One of the ways of getting the sticky off the back is to use your glue eraser, and it's coming off just nicely. So heat didn't seem to affect it too much, which is great. So now that is ready to go. And I've got a little pill of glue, so I take that off right away, throw that in the garbage, and then I just do all of the samples like that, just gently. Remember, some of them might still be damp, so you don't want to push too hard. And this was a sample I didn't like the way it turned out. I didn't think it was a good example of what the color could be, so I just used it again. So this is a mass production here, which is much better than it used to be when I was doing it before, and I would do one at a time. So now this, I think, is going to be much more efficient. I'm all about saving time. And you can see I use scrap papers. All I'm really looking for is the color and the what happens with the reaction. I'm not really looking for how it plays on the paper, because my papers are going to be different every time I do them. All right, so now all I do is I take my first round of colors, which is this one, and it appears to me, make sure I've got this in the right order. Yeah, okay, so they look in the right order. I'm going to get myself a black marker, thin marker if you can. Make sure it's working when you are using it. Sometimes I run out of ink. And this is round espresso, and then I put in brackets at the end, O. That tells me it's an oxide, and I just do that to all of them. And if you spell something wrong, because it's paper, just fix it. There we go. I knew it had 2 letters, wasn't sure which one it was. And that's an oxide. These are just my samples. I'm not worried about them being perfect. And if I run off out of space, I'll just go down and put the O underneath, just so that it is there. All right, so that's all those babies done. And now we're going to put them inside our, I use a snap album. So that's one of these guys with the tines on them. I have my regular inks ordered in a particular way, and so that's how what I follow when I am ordering my oxides. So they're both in the exact same order. So I just flip over to my reds, because I'm going to start with the fired brick, and I look on here, and fired brick is right beside crackling campfire, and I think I did crackling campfire before, so there's my oxide crackling campfire. And so that is where I'm going to put my fired brick. And on the opposite side, you have to go in this way. So that's fired brick filed beside crackly campfire in the same way that it is for the inks. All right, that was hard to get out, but now you have my process. And so candied apple, I'm flipping this above so you don't have to look at my other album. Candied apple is the bottom, and it goes right in this spot. I can get it in there. There we go. And then saltwater taffy is on this page, and it's behind the beginning of this row. And this row, I could just stick that from the front, push that in. And then we have Kitsch Flamingo, which goes right underneath, and there's already color on the back side that I've already put in. So I'm going to slip this on top. And sometimes they're a little bit wide. That's why I do just under a 2-inch. But when they're thick, the paper's thick that I'm sampling, it sometimes won't fit too. So I just took about a 1/16 of an inch off that, and it goes beside picked raspberries, and there we go. And this paper is a little bit thin. All right, so I'm struggling a bit, so I'm going to pull out the one that was on the back, put the 2 of them together and stick them in together, and that should give me enough stiffness not to fold them back. So that's how I get them into order, and then these 2 sit in the album together, and I've got my distress colors, and then I can flip over into my distress oxides so I can see what's going on. On this one I did light, dark, and splattered. On these I just did the color and splatter because the opaqueness of it creates dark no matter what you do. You can layer, but it's, it takes a while to get it darker than it is when you just lay it out on its own. Continuing on with this to my oranges. So there we go, that's in there, and look how nice that turned out. That really gives you a sense of things. And you can see how some of them oxidize really quickly and others do not, so that's kind of fun. That's interesting how close they are in colors. This is a little more pinky orange. And this draws out yellow, and this one draws out more pink. So that's an interesting color mix. All right, so those were the first three, and I do the same thing for the second three, and then I will show you it all together and how I actually put these away to store. So we have finished our Distress Archival colors and our oxides and our Distress ink. So this is the book that I have for all kinds of different mediums, and some techniques I've added in here, but my book is getting so thick those will probably go into a book of their own. I just literally put a sampling of all the different kinds of mediums and inks that I have, and you can see that I have many. They all do something different though. And then to just make sure that the next time I go to do something that it's easy for me to do, I try to make sure that I have blanks in there. This one I think might just be one, so I'm going to put a blank in there, and I'll just go through and fill the empty spots with blanks so I don't have to keep cutting every time. So when I cut a whole stream of them, and then I just fill up, and then the next time I want to put my colors in, I just pull the blanks out of there so I don't lose or forget where I've put my blanks. So that's it for this part of the organizing. Now, having said all that, I usually use this book as my go-to for how I organize my inks into their containers. So let me just show you. I have multiples of these containers. I love them. It's too bad they're no longer available, but there might be something new coming out. Who knows? So these are the 8-drawer Totally Tiffany containers, and how I organize them. Ooh, there's my masking stuff. I keep all like things together. Is I have the 8 trays, and I try to organize according to what I have in my book. Now these were the first round of colors, so they're totally not organized according to the book. So I will organize those with you now. You're going to need 2 in order to get the entire set. Sorry, it's loud. In order to get the entire set into an organizer, when Tim is finished doing all of the releasing of the product, you'll have 72, I think it is, colors that need to have a home. So I haven't put this together yet. I won't do that on screen because it'll take a while, but you will see how this gets organized. The other thing that I have done in previous is in my ink version of this container is that I've inserted just a small, maybe, and I'll show you that. So here's what it looks like when it's full, and if you open it up, there's empty space at the bottom. So if I take this out, I have put this, I've just created a little square piece of paper that goes in the bottom that helps keep these guys all secure, and I'll put a random plain unused mini foam in there in case at any point in time I don't have an actual foam on the back of my inks. I always prep my inks by putting an actual foam in the ink head, and sometimes they're rounded ink foams, and if they're rounded they don't fit as nicely, so sometimes, as you can see in this one, I will put an elastic around it to keep it together. Other times, like in this case, it just sits in the area where that color is going to be. So these colors are all organized according to what I have in my book, which makes it easier for me to go from my book to my inks and know where to find it right away. Otherwise, I would have to search through. And then on my shelf, I just put a little label that says Mini Distress Inks. You can't see it in focus, but I didn't bother using the tab because I think, yeah, they have the opening for the tab on the wrong side according to what I like to see, which is it's on the left side of my desk, so I want to pull that, and then that means I need a label on this side. That is the basics. Now, to organize it, these I'm sorting according to the rows in my book. So, for instance, let's get started. So I'm going to take these guys out because they're right away in the wrong place. I know I have Villainous Potion and I have Dusty Concord. I find my Villainous Potion, my Dusty Concord, then my next color is going to be Seedless Grapes. Then I don't have two more colors, so they're not going to be placed in there. Let me just put this so you can sort of see how many inks are going to go in. Then my next color that I have is going to be Shaded Lilac. So there's literally going to be two more inks going into this row, okay? Because I know I can get 6 inks in a row. And so 6 inks is 2 rows of my sample book. And then, so that's the purples. And then let me just pull out the oranges for a minute. Then I go to the blues, and my next 2 rows in my sample book, okay, the next 2 rows are full, so I should be able to find these colors. I'm starting with Blueprint Sketch, and then Chip Sapphire. Chip Sapphire, where are you? Oh, that Chip Sapphire is from the old collection, so I actually should pull that one out, because it is in blue writing, so it's from a big ink pad I had back in the day. I do have prize ribbon, so prize ribbon is going to go there, so there's an empty spot in between. Then I have Stormy Sky, which I thought was here. Yep, Stormy Sky, Faded Jeans, and then the final one for this is Salty Ocean. Now, they're going to move around until I get the last sets. So those 2 are done, and I'm just going to slip those into my container. They're ready to go. I haven't cut the little square things for the bottom of this yet. That's it for another day. Then let's take our next empty one, and we are going to do the next page. So the next page, I have quite a few that are still missing. Okay, so these 2 rows are going to go into that one column. And I'm going to start with Mermaid. So I'm going to stick that in there. Take this out because the very top of this is Peacock Feather. And then the next group starts with Rustic Wilderness at the top. And then the next group is going to be yellows. So we're going to have to take some of these oranges out, I think. And I don't have the first color here, but I have old paper. And then the next set is oranges. So I don't have the first orange. Then I have Wild Honey. And then I have Ripe Persimmon. Got this bin completed as far as we can go. I need to put a label on the side, which I happen to just have printed off my label maker, so I'll pull that out. Might as well put that on while I'm here. There we go. And I like my pulls from the right hand side, so I'm just going to put my label, oops, and that's not very straight. There we go, and then I have my Oxides label. All right, so that's the first box. And then, oops, all the boxes on the floor. And then the last group is going to start with Lumberjack, and of course you saw I didn't have this opened up yet. I label it the same way as I did that I showed you already, and then that's everything. Tidy, put away, easy to grab when I want it, and they stack nicely, and all 4 of them are so thin that I can get all 4 stacked one on top of the other underneath my desk, which is exactly where I want it. So that is it for organizing and sampling the oxides. I hope you enjoyed seeing my process, and please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and if you would like to share this with friends, I would really appreciate it, and we'll see you next week. Bye.